Hello everyone and welcome! We are in a golden age of stories because the stories of Zone and Piltover are piling up almost faster than I can read them. So let's check another one of our list and let's talk about Caitlyn. Caitlyn was born to a wealthy and influential family of Hextech artificers in Piltover. She quickly learned to live the high city life, but she always preferred to spend her free time in the wilder lands to the south. Soon she learned both how to talk to wealthy citizens and how to track a deer through muddy forests. She spent most of her time beyond Piltover's gates. She could track flying birds or put a bullet through the eye of a hare 300 yards away, all with the help of her father's Bilgewater repeater musket. Most of her potential was based on her intelligence and her willingness to learn from her parents, who helped her understand what is right and wrong. Though the family's engineering skills made them wealthy, her mother always warned her about the false promises of Piltover, that the city can harden even the kindest hearts. But Caitlyn ignored the warnings, for she knew Piltover as a city of beauty, a place of order she could cherish after each trip into the wild. That all changed during a progress day 5 years later. When Caitlyn returned from one of her long walks in the woodlands, she found her home empty. All the members of their family were dead, but her parents were nowhere to be found. Caitlyn secured her home and immediately set off in search of her mother and father. Hunting in the city was very different from hunting in the wild, but one by one Caitlyn located the men who invaded her home. None of the men knew who hired them, but they all worked through a man using the initial C. The trail eventually led Caitlyn into a secret Hextech laboratory where her mother and father worked against their will. Putting her skills to work once again, Caitlyn saved her parents, and based on her information, the wardens arrested the clan leader behind the kidnapping. She and her parents returned home and they began to rebuild their lives, though something in Caitlyn changed. She saw Piltover from a different perspective. She now saw the greed and danger hidden deep inside the city, and she saw she could help. Though she loved her parents, she decided to abandon following their footsteps as an artisan, and instead she looked for a way to earn living in the metropolis. She began as an investigator, utilizing her skills as a hunter while looking for lost people and stolen goods. For her 21st birthday, Caitlyn's parents gave her a Hextech rifle of the highest quality. The weapon had greater accuracy than any rifle she had ever owned. It was modified to switch between a variety of different ammunition types. This gun has never left Caitlyn's side. Her job made her memorize every Piltover street and shortcut, and it taught her how dangerous untested Hextech and rogue Chemtech development is. Over the next few years, she became known as the go-to investigator whenever someone needed any form of help. One special case involving a missing Hextech device and a series of child abductions led Caitlyn to work with an agent of the Piltover Wardens. Together, they worked on the case for weeks before they finally figured it out. Caitlyn and the Warden rescued the children after a battle with a host of augmented thugs and a chem researcher driven mad by his own chemicals. As she and the Warden shared a celebratory drink, he offered her job as a sheriff. At first, Caitlyn refused, but eventually she realized that with unlimited resources, she could get closer to uncovering who is this mysterious C, the last person involved in the attack on her family that remained hidden. Caitlyn now works as an officer within the ranks of Piltover Wardens. She has recently partnered with a new recruit from Zone, the brash and reckless Vi. How such an unlikely duo got together is speculated both among the other officers and their prisoners. Another one of her stories brings us into the heart of Piltover, where even during the evening the streets were crowded, and even more people were coming in as the clubs and theaters were closing. This didn't help Caitlyn and her partner Mohan as they were in the middle of a case. "Do you see him?" shouted Mohan from behind. If I could see him, I'd already be drawing a bead on him. They were chasing an especially agile man called Devaki. He had robbed 3 workshops and possibly even more which they didn't even know about in the last 5 weeks. Caitlyn and Mohan speculated that there was a bigger deal behind Devaki's work, and they kept watch on House Morichi's workshops. And surely enough, they got robbed too. Just as the street lamps got lit, Caitlyn and the thief Devaki caught a reflection of each other in the glass of a cafe across the street. A second later, Devaki vanished into the crowds. Caitlyn darted through the people, looking for a distinctive silhouette. A young man crossed the street toward her, his cheeks in a smile. "You looking for a man on the run?" he asked. "Fella with a big hat?" "Yes," said Caitlyn. "You saw him? Where did he go?" The young man pointed left. "Down that way at a good clip." Further down that way, there was a street full of people buying refreshments and enjoying the company of promenade girls. Mohan finally caught up to Caitlyn, sweating and breathing heavily. "Figured he'd try to lose himself in the crowd," he said between gulps of air. Caitlyn took a moment and studied the man who's trying to help them. His clothes were expensive but very old. Mohan turned toward the busy street. "Come on, Caitlyn, let's go or we'll lose him." Caitlyn dropped to one knee, to look at the street from a different perspective. The cobbles were slick from the evening rain. From this angle, she saw the deep heel marks only a running man would leave behind. And they weren't going left as the man said, they were going the other direction. "How much did Devaki give you to tell us that? If it was less than 1 gold hex, you were swindled." The young man put his hands up. "It was 5 actually," he said, running toward the crowd with a laugh. "What the?" said Mohan as Caitlyn sprinted the opposite direction. She lost valuable seconds, but she knew exactly where Devaki was going now. She soon left Mohan behind as she took every shortcut imaginable. The streets became narrower the closer she got to the canyon dividing Piltover. After a dozen twists and turns, she emerged onto a crooked street following the cliff. This place was known as the Drop Street because of the conveyor at the end that ran into late night. There was a group of Zonites gathered around the ticket booth. Many of them were intoxicated, but none of them was the man Caitlyn was looking for. She crouched, resting the barrel of her rifle on one of Clan Medarda's crates. It was surely full of stolen property, but she didn't have time to check it. She looked through the crystalline lenses of her rifle. Moments later, Devaki appeared from behind the corner. He wasn't in a hurry, thinking he got away. He was carrying a heavy case with his metal-clawed hand. According to Vi, he got that augmentation just for the sake of it when he was young. Caitlyn focused her aim on the metal arm and squeezed the trigger. In an instant, Devaki's hand was gone. He cried out and fell back, his head toppling from his head. He looked up in surprise and saw Caitlyn. He turned to run, but Caitlyn was prepared. With her thumb, she pressed a switch and fired again. This time an electrified net brought Devaki to the ground. She powered down the rifle and slowly walked to him. "How?" said Devaki through the spasms wrecking his body. "How did I know where you were headed?" asked Caitlyn. Devaki nodded, the movement jerky and forced. "Your previous thefts were meaningless in themselves, but when I looked at them as a part of a larger scheme, it seemed like you were gathering components to build a version of Vishta's Hexlane Caliver," said Caitlyn. She knelt beside Devaki to place a hand on his body. "And as we all know, that weapon was outlawed as being too dangerous, wasn't it? No one in Piltover would dare to touch that kind of banned hex, but someone maybe in Noxus? They'd pay handsomely for that, I imagine. But the only place you could get something like that out of the city is through Zone's less reputable smugglers. This is the only quick route down into Zone that's still running at this time of the night. Once I saw you weren't going to try and hide out in Piltover, all I had to do was to get to the conveyor before you and wait. So you and I are going to have a long talk, and you're going to tell me who you're working for." Devaki didn't answer, and Caitlyn grinned as she reached over his prone body. "Nice hat," she said. And that is the story of Caitlyn. If you want more stories with her, wait a few days for me to finish Vi's lore, or watch the Progress Day story which is on my channel right now. Either way, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a like down below together with any form of feedback you may think of. If you want to talk to me, follow me on Twitter, Facebook or Discord. Again, thank you so much for your support, I really appreciate it. And as always, thank you come again.